Welcome to another episode of The Shift with Elena Agar. In this episode, I chat with Brian Aquart. He is back for round two. He was with us first time probably a year and a half ago or so, where he talked to us about his healthcare career and kind of what led him up to do that. He was then also just getting started in the podcasting world. So we caught up in this episode and really talked about his growth as a podcaster. It's been phenomenal. His podcast is growing, it's quality, it's amazing guests. So it was really exciting to see the things he's doing. We talked about AI. We talked about how we're using that in our podcasting careers and so on. We talked about the impact of metrics in the world of in the world of audiences and so on. Like, do you chase the metrics? Do you not? Like, what does it look like? So we kind of shared our own personal experiences with that. Within the healthcare space, he's making a lot of different waves. So he's actually educating the youth around him by kind of starting different initiatives within healthcare education space. So it's really, really inspiring. And finally, he's started running marathons and is doing this really cool thing where he's running all the big marathons around the world. He's done Berlin in recent times. He's done New York and Chicago, I believe, is already done. And now he's got a few more in the pipeline. So overall, really kind of diversified individual that has his hands in so many different areas of work and passions and hobbies. So check out the episode and let me know what you think. Mr. Brian, welcome back to the Shift Podcast, part two.
I love this. One of my favorite people to talk to. So thank you for having me back.
Likewise, likewise. I'm really excited to chat with you. You've been up to a lot of different things. Last time we recorded was what, a year ago? Probably more, probably a year ago. I should have
Yeah,
checked. I don't know why I didn't check, but probably at least a year.
yeah, definitely. I think I was still in season one of the show.
Yeah, I remember because you just started and we were talking
Yeah.
about it. And now you're like all over the place. Like it's just I see it everywhere. The design, the promotions. I'm like, I'm learning from you. I'm like, well, how is he doing this? And so it's been amazing. Tell me about what's been happening in the podcast world for you.
Yeah, so it's been good. So now I'm into season three already. And what's great is that so we spoke at the time. I had just launched it. I was still figuring things out. To be honest, I'm still figuring things out. But season two launched. I had so much great response from it
Hmm.
from season one that I ended up launching, second season, and it was 38 episodes. And let me tell you, that was a heck of a season. It was just a large lift because I dedicated 2 months of content to mental health, which I'm glad I did because I had some great conversations in season one that really sparked that. But it was a lot. That was a lot. And so I'm in
Mm.
season three now. And what I told myself was, I was like, yeah, let's go back to that 15 to 20 type of episode season because it's just, look, it's me and a producer and I spend a lot of time on it. And
Sure.
that was a lot to bear. And when it comes to the design, I mean, I have you to thank for that. That's Marina.
Ah, she's
Mar-
amazing, right?
she's solid
Shout out
gold.
to her.
Shout out
Yeah.
to Marina. Look, I have a bunch of ideas for things, and I'm like, hey, here's what I'm thinking about doing. I want to align certain things better, and I just like you go for it. You let me know, and then we go. And she's a rock star, so she's the one who's helped me with this new redesign, right?
Mm.
From my banner to my feature photo to the new thumbnails and new other types of images that go
Hmm.
either real covers and all that. That's Marina. Like I throw in some advice or some insight and she runs with it. And then I'm like, hey, just give me a base and I'll go
Hmm.
from there. So
Yeah. She's
big shout
awesome.
out to Marina.
Yeah, yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome. Cool. So let me ask you about your seasons. Because you said you mentioned that in one of the seasons you focused on mental health. So do you have themes for every season?
So
Or
not
yeah.
every season.
Hmm.
So right now the theme has always just been, obviously why people leave.
Right.
But what I did for season two was because so I had an episode in season one where I talked with a nurse who has a great, very open discussion about mental health. He
Mm.
lives over in the UK. And he said, look, if I would have taken care of my mental health, I'd probably still be a nurse today. And we really got into it. And, I had to put a trigger warning on there because we talked about he had, suicidal ideations, all these
Mm.
types of things that were going on that he didn't address because he was like, I felt I was a leader. Didn't have to do that. But I really should have. And, Elaine, after that went out, I was getting pinged from folks like, "Thank you for sharing that." There were folks in healthcare, either at my space or even, across the country, like, "I appreciate you sharing that because we did go through so much and no one's really talking about it." And there's this whole thing that's happening, with
Yeah.
nurses and physicians. And so I was like, "Oh, wow, I didn't expect that. That wasn't, a thing of mine." And so once I heard that, I was like, "You know what? Maybe I should dedicate some topics or dedicate some content, specific content to mental health." So that when I launched season 2, I said, "I'm gonna do that." Like, there was a blend of some why I left, but some mental health focus because I think people really needed that, and it was
Yeah.
great.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely an important topic to cover. So when we first started, you were in season one, you're in
Mhm.
season three now. What has been like any like revelations in your own journey in this, like as a podcaster? Like what has been like some of the highlights or learning lessons? I don't know, anything.
Yeah. So I think what's been great, and, it's funny, I did a master class on this probably like a week ago, but the reoccurring theme around fear is something that across the spectrum, like what you're starting to see in my show, like I'm at the time of this episode, I'm 61 episodes. I'm sorry, at the time of this conversation, I'm 61 episodes in. And what you start seeing is this reoccurring theme around fear, right?
Mm,
And why people sometimes it took them a certain amount of time to leave a job because they were fearful for a variety of reasons. But what's great is that you hear that from all different parts of the country, all different parts of the world. And so, one of my it really lends credence to one of my big themes is around, my goal is around positively impacting the human experience because I do think we're all so connected. And you're starting to see that now, intentionally or unintentionally. Like I had a
mm-hmm.
feeling about this, but now it's organically happening in these discussions. So I love that. So one of the things I'm really picking up, I think personally, is, at times we shouldn't wait for some monumental moment to make some monumental shift. And I think I can almost, I kind of live that a little bit in that when I started my podcast, I mean, it wasn't exactly a great time to start the podcast. I was in a very active, visible job day to day. I didn't really have to do this, but something was calling me to do this. And so I almost like felt that. And I didn't necessarily know why, right? I've had a bunch of ideas, some really never stick, but this one really did. But, once you get into it, you're starting like, "Oh, you know what? I'm glad I didn't wait to do this because here's what I've learned so much of." And so when I hear people in the show, they're overcoming their own fears. They're having these conversations themselves. They're basically telling themselves, "Why wait?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
Why wait? And so I love that. I love that. And I've had, gems of quotes on the show. Like, what the gentleman I quoted at the end of that masterclass I was telling you about, he used to tell his son, his name was Brad Hicks, tells his son, don't let fear take the fun out of life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so simple yet profound
Mm-hmm.
that I it's something that's really stuck with me. It's really stuck with me because we are all fearful for whatever reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stuck in jobs or stuck in other things, right? That we
Mm-hmm.
may be scared to get out of. But what gets you across that hump, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think, being planful, being intentional about what it is you want to do and what really drives you helps people move past that.
Hmm. You know what's interesting that you say about fear? I have this on my whiteboard because
Hmm.
I'm like in the last year or so, I've been like trying to face my own fears in different ways. And so I've wrote this quote. I don't even know if it's a quote. I don't remember. I just have it written. I don't remember. So I'm sorry if I can't give credit to whoever came up with this, but it says, have fear, but don't have doubt.
Hmm. I
And
like
that's what I
that.
have. And then followed by you're not your thoughts or your past. So like if you have failed in the past, it doesn't. So it's like this like my little fear setting exercise, I guess, that I do on like that's just like right there in front of me always. But it's like if you're afraid, but don't doubt, like believe in yourself and keep moving type thing,
Yeah.
And the other day I was talking to a guest and I also realized that a lot of people are not only afraid because of like failure, they're afraid to succeed. they're
Mm,
afraid of what if, like, I don't know about you, but you know what's my stupid thing that I got to go through, and I think a lot of people go through it,
right.
is when you're happy and you're like everything is going good, you're like, wait a minute. Something is gonna hit the fan. This is not okay.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like that's a
I
fear I
do.
go through. Like I'm afraid of being happy. Like I'm afraid when things are okay. Like it's like, it's too
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I think there's a certain level of cynicism that comes with being a human being because you know that life has its ebbs and flows.
Mm,
And you know that if things are really good, and I've kind of been there too. If things are really good, it's like, ooh, let me cherish this, but try to be present and cherish this because things can't be good, quote unquote, forever, right? And so I do think people kind of think like that and get stuck in that. You know what I would say, and I've been there myself. Um, I try very hard to just remain as present as possible in the good and sometimes even in the bad, even though I want to obviously get out of the bad because I do think it helps you to prolong some of those good times and you learn things when you're when you're like down on your luck or whatever phrase you want to use, but you're in a bad spot. You learn things that you're like, okay, when I come out of this, I'm going to be better for that. So that if there's ever some type of downturn, it's not
mm,
as low as the lowest point was. That's what I try to you know remember, right? Because
yeah.
there's been plenty of lows in my career journey where I'm like, damn, I never want to go back there, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what did I learn during that time to help me that in the event I do or this does happen, how can I handle it a bit better? So like it's always because I'm kind of a nerd that way, but I'm always like learning in the good and the bad.
Yeah, I love that. It's helpful. It definitely. It's nice to hear, like sometimes we just need like reassurance
Yeah,
in that way.
yeah,
What else is going on? You're doing the running, you're doing 40 under 40,
yeah.
40 for 40,
40
sorry.
for
I
40.
want
Yeah.
to tell me more. I want to know everything, what's happening, or as much as you're willing to share.
No, no, I could share. I mean, look, I put it out there on
Yeah.
in the social media verse. So, one of the things I had let me back up. Last year, I ran two marathons. It was two international. Well, no, so one was international, one was Chicago, and it was just a great experience, right? I kind of
Hmm.
got back into the running space and training and all that stuff. And I knew obviously I was like, oh, next year I'm turning for what am I going to do for my 40th birthday? And so I got to thinking about it and randomly it just hit me. I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to run 40 races to celebrate my 40th year of life.
Very cool.
And told my wife, I was like, yeah, and I'm going to call it 40 for 40, right? That's
Yeah.
what I'm doing. Like, I don't, at this stage, I'm not going to any party. Like, I'm not, you don't need to throw me
Yeah,
any
yeah,
birthday, but I'm going to
yeah.
celebrate all year, to be honest. And what I'm hoping to do, I mean, there's a couple cases where I'm raising money for two races, but if there are folks who are in certain areas that I'm in or they want to join, maybe we come do the run with me, and my birthday celebration will be these series of races from March 21st through March 21st of 2024 through the 21st of 25. And so
So when is
that's
your birthday? March 21st?
March 21st is
Nice.
my birthday. So we're starting it soon. And what's great. And so I had this idea. And then what made me put the post out there, I knew I was going to do something, but lo and behold, it's just so funny how life works sometimes. But there was a woman who I met online who reached out to me randomly and was like, what's your word or focus of the year? And I was like, oh, like that's so random you would ask me that. Here's what I'm doing. And I was like, actually, it's movement, right? It's movement.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so movement is my word, is my focus because, for those of us who are, blessed and have the opportunity to be able to move, we
Hmm.
shouldn't take that for granted, right? And I won't ask you your age, but right, when we get up to a certain age, we start
I'm
you know,
I'm
the,
I'm right behind you. I'm just a
you're
few
right.
years.
But
I'm 37. No, it's okay.
30,
I'm open. I'm
okay,
37. Yeah, yeah.
okay. So the knees aren't what they used to be in high
I was
school.
just telling
Neither
you
are
that,
the
yeah. I was
ankles,
about to
right?
say.
Neither is the lower back.
Yeah.
So any day, anytime I get a chance to get out there, do some movement, whether it's running, pushing, pulling, lip, whatever, I'm thankful to be able to do that because there has been times, and if you've ever been injured, you know this, anyone listening knows this. If you've ever had movement taken away from you,
Mhm.
you know how much of a blessing it is to be able to move. And it's no knock to people
Absolutely.
who unfortunately have not been able to move, right? But it's just not taking for granted that ability to do so. And so I want to celebrate that. And that's exactly what 40 for 40 is all about. It's a celebration
Mm.
of movement.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I told you before we started recording, you've inspired me. I was like, I'm now signing up for all these things to like
Good.
commit to something. So no, you're right. It's a blessing, and I think we often forget how much of a blessing it is to just be able to see, to move your hands, to speak, to be able to move your body. Like I mean, you know how I feel about it, that I'm such a fan of performance in general, and
Mhm.
training, and just taking care of yourself and so on. So it's just we forget. We get so busy, Brian, and we just forget, you know?
Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
forget sometimes to be grateful, but also to maintain it. Like especially as like now, my focus, like you mentioned, like as you get older, right? So my focus now, longevity. So I'm no longer in this like, the body image aspect, which is great and it's important to an extent, but now I'm like longevity. Like I wanna, you know what I mean? Like I'm focusing more on like mobility training.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
where it's at for me, like strength training, mobility training, like,
Hmm.
aging gracefully. Like I'm still young, yes, but like aging gracefully in the future, it starts now.
Oh,
So
it
I
starts
think,
right now. I was about to
oh,
say we
it's
we
started
can't start when we're 60,
started a
right?
while. Yeah, yeah. It started a while back actually, but
Yes. Yes.
yeah, yeah, that's very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
so I'm excited about that, and the two big races that I have that I'm fundraising for. One is here in New York. There's this preserve called the Mohonk Preserve, and there's like this. It's up north, and it's this 50-mile race that we're doing. But I'm doing it as a relay. I'm not running 50 miles, but I'm doing it as a relay, and so we're raising money for that preserve. So that's pretty cool. And then the big one is I'm running the Chicago Marathon, again raising money for, in this case it's the Advocate Childhood Trauma Treatment Program. I ran with
Mm-hmm.
them last year, and it's just really, again, along the lines of mental health and mental health awareness and the effect that childhood trauma has on individuals, right? Obviously as
Mm-hmm.
children, but clearly it sticks with folks as they go into adulthood. Just trying to raise awareness on those types of issues and support Advocate and what they're trying to do in that space. So a lot of fun there.
Yeah. How was Berlin? That was your international one, right? You went to Berlin.
Yeah, Berlin was great. It was my first time in Berlin, in Germany, and first international race, and
Mhm.
it was just a great experience. One thing that was interesting was, we did one like a little walking tour beforehand, but to see the history, literally still, like the shellings from World War II and some of the buildings on
Mm,
as we were walking around, was just very fascinating to learn about the city. I mean, it is, obviously a lot has happened in Berlin, and it was interesting to just be a part of that and witness it. And then clearly, I think there's no better way to explore a city than running through the streets. It also
absolutely.
it also helps when they're closed off. So that was beautiful just to see that. And the added extra bonus was that there was on the in the women's race, there was a world record that was run,
Oh,
and
wow.
so that was awesome. And so, like, both marathons that I ran last year, there was a women's world record in at Berlin, and then a men's world record in Chicago, and that was just awesome to be on the course. Obviously, nowhere
Mhm.
near
No,
them,
it's just that
but
to
just to
be
be
there.
on the
Yeah.
course. Yeah, that was
That's
awesome.
cool. Are you
Yeah.
thinking to do international races, like other ones, or like if you were to do one, which ones would you be like, I would definitely do this one. Like which countries?
Oh yeah, so I'm on. Oh, I don't think I shared this with you, but I'm
Mm,
on my 6-star journey. Abbott World Marathon Majors has this goal of becoming like a 6-star world marathoner, and so the world marathons are New York, Chicago, Boston, London, Tokyo, and Berlin. Sorry, yeah, in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've done three of them. I've done New
Okay.
York, Chicago, and Berlin. And so the ones I have left are Boston, um, Tokyo, and
In
London.
London.
And
Wow.
oddly enough, I got into the lottery for Tokyo this year. It just happened Sunday, but I just couldn't swing it. I couldn't
Mm.
swing.
When was it going to be?
It was, no, it was March 3rd.
Oh, so it already happened.
It already
Okay.
passed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I just couldn't swing it. It's one of those trips. You don't go to Tokyo for a day
Oh, yeah,
or
for sure.
two.
Takes
You know,
2 days to get there.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So it's like,
On
you
the
don't
East
do
Coast,
that.
at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to, next time, we're going to try again next year, but hopefully have a bit more time before and after to kind of make it useful, make it a worthwhile trip.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all Tokyo is also on my list of just bucket list places. Japan in general, like I just want to explore
Yeah.
it.
And it is
Yeah.
beautiful. And I've been, and the other thing is I've been to Japan
Oh,
and it was
nice.
beautiful to go.
Hmm.
And so, I want to experience some of that. I'm a little bit older now, a little bit wiser now. So would love to see it again.
Yeah, with new eyes.
Yeah.
What else is exciting going on? What are you excited about this year?
Yeah. Well, if I guess one of the biggest things, we've talked a little bit about some of the work I do in healthcare, I think in
Mm-hmm.
our part one discussion. But I've gotten really involved in actually, yeah, when we spoke, I was in a different role. Now I'm still in healthcare and I am overseeing a lot of initiatives that deal with helping high school students really understand the opportunities that exist within healthcare. So I'm in this like healthcare education space. And we've partnered recently. We partnered with New York City Public Schools, and I work at Northwell um, on this initiative initially called Future Ready NYC, which has been great, right? And so we've been an anchor healthcare employer partner there. And what it led to was us then being a good candidate to partner with the city to respond to this RFP that Bloomberg Philanthropies put out, this whole healthcare education initiative that they're running across the nation. And lo and behold, I won't bore you with the details, but we ended up leading and secured this multi-million dollar grant to start this healthcare high school. It's going to be called the Northwell School of Health Sciences.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it is the largest initiative that I've been a part of leading in my career. And it is also something that has really touched me personally because of my interest in education and specifically, healthcare education and making sure that people know, and this obviously high school students, but people know all the things that exist in healthcare. It's more than doctors and nurses. Yes, doctors and nurses are very important, but I want you to see the vast, opportunities that you can get into.
Mm-hmm.
And what's great is that, and through something like even Future Ready, you see learning happening when students come into these types of rotations. Like right now, we're doing something called Career Discovery Week, and a big part of the program too is internships. So when they see what healthcare is, then the light bulbs go off.
Mm-hmm.
Because Elena, let's face it, not everybody is going to college. That's okay, right?
Yeah.
I want them to know, I want students to know, I want people to know that if you don't have a 4-year degree, there are opportunities for you that exist in healthcare. If you have a 2-year degree, if you have a 4-year degree, there are opportunities that exist for you in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare is one of the continuing just growing fields in the nation. Over the course of the next 10 years, we're talking like roughly a 20% increase in the
Mm-hmm.
jobs that will be needed across the country. So what that signals, what it should signal to young people and people in general, as I mentioned, is that, oh, there may be some spaces and opportunity for me to come into this area, learn about it, and let's be honest, make some good money and make a livable wage wherever you may be. And that's kind of that's like my North Star right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really trying to drive that, really trying to to show people that and show students that. And that's like one of the biggest things that I have going on right now. But I'm very, very happy to be a part of it. With it, it's us, New York City Public Schools, the Fund for Public Schools, all just working very nicely together. So I love it.
Mm, that's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you can speak on this, but in healthcare, like, is there any, like, are you involved in anything with like upskilling, reskilling, like within the AI space? Like, everybody talks about it, but I don't really know what's happening in healthcare. Like, I know in like in kind of the corporate tech world, there's a lot of chat. But what are you? I guess what is the industry? What are you guys concerned about when it comes to AI, if anything at all?
Yeah, well, I think when it comes to AI, I think a lot of it has to do with what what type of access you give these types of models, and after you give them these, these big LLM models, these big LLMs access, how do you go about controlling what it can get into and how people are using it?
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think there are opportunities for AI to help as it relates to how you better serve communities, how you streamline some processes, right? I mean, the administrative component alone of some of these models that I've seen are very much worth it, right? But when you get into, patient data, other types of very sensitive types of information, there becomes a whole host of, privacy, risk, liability issues that companies, healthcare being one, but obviously many companies are they want to make sure that they're going about it the right way. So we are, and a lot of organizations are, looking into AI to better help streamline processes, but also looking at it to, from a patient care angle, right? You can, especially in a place like New York, you have all what Queens in and of itself is one of the most diverse boroughs in the nation, right? And so when you think about the communities that a system serves, well, how can you better utilize the data that you get on those populations to then provide a heightened level of care? Arguably, you could use different models and whichever one you'd want to go with, right? But you can use these different models to help you um, develop strategies to address maybe a certain uptick in, let's say, XYZ disease in this space. Well, how do we now proactively go out and target that? Because here's what we're starting to notice. I
Mm-hmm.
think you'll have different tech and different AI that's helpful in addressing those types of things. So the whole focus around, let's say, like social determinants of health, you've probably heard that phrase before. I think you'll see some good test cases on how AI is being used to resolve or help address some of those issues that may be coming up.
Mm. Yeah,
So
it's
possibilities are
interesting.
endless. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's I'm excited about it in general. Like, I'm not so concerned about. I've always managed to kind of go with the flow wherever the workforce is going in terms
Hmm.
of my own skill set and so on. But there's definitely I don't know. I just foresee probably a lot of disruption coming our way, and just the way that we work, and I'm in talent development, so I do worry about certain, like certain industries, certain job roles, and so on. And I'm just, I don't know if people are preparing accordingly,
Yeah.
and I don't know if companies are, like, I don't know if CEOs are putting it on top of their agendas to prepare their businesses, right? AKA their people at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think
Um,
I've heard some. I know ours is for sure. We have, we've got some good partnerships with some tech companies that, are along these lines. So yeah, I think those that aren't truthfully should, right? Because it's coming for sure. That actually leads me, if you don't mind, I want to ask you a question.
mm.
You mentioned about just staying on top of these things and staying on top of trends. How comfortable have you been or are you with like prompt engineering and prompting things like a chat gpt or bard or whatever your platform of choice is? How comfortable have you been in that space?
In some aspects too comfortable. So, like, I mean, listen, it's the tools that I use, and some of them, the beautiful part is that, like, the Cast Magic tool, which, by the way, if you're not yet using it for,
I have
oh,
it.
oh my
God.
God. talking about prompts, like, and so like that's what the first thing that pops up because it actually has prompts that are in there. So you learn a lot from just the preset things. So like how to actually like what to ask for with ChatGPT. I've gotten actually pretty good, like because actually I'm taking like a class on it, like one of those free classes. IBM has like a free class and like really just to like
Mhm.
understand AI and all of that because I don't know anything about like I know ChatGPT and like but I don't know anything about like the larger ML AI world. And I love it. I think it's a productivity hack in general. You
Agreed.
know,
Ag-
yeah.
Agreed. I'm on, like I guess what do you call like an advisory board member on this company called Modal, right? They're a e-learning company. And they had a class that was a prompt engineering class that you went through. It was like a 2-week course. They paired you with someone in, like software development. I think he taught at a school, actually, probably in DC somewhere. And I took this course and it was phenomenal.
Mm.
It helped because I mean, look, for my podcast, let me back up. For my podcast, ChatGPT has basically sunset the individual that I hired from Fiverr who was doing my show who was doing my show notes, right? Because I don't need that anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so it's been very helpful in obviously creating content, creating like here are the interviews, like how can we, get a couple posts about this? Like a lot of them, I probably, some people copy paste. I don't really do that too much. I like it. I brainstorm with
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
I
Yep.
brainstorm like, all right, well, here's what's going on. I don't like everything it says, but then I can play with it. The prompt engineering course was fantastic because it allowed me, like, I don't use, Bard or some of the other ones, but it allowed me to compare what what one prompt would get you on one platform as opposed to the other.
Mm.
And so, yeah, it is just, people have to just get in there, play around with it and use it because, it is a productivity hack for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's I'm like likewise like with you, I talk to it for brainstorming, right? And it just because it's sometimes especially like in a world of like content creation or like different programs that I design, like I'm like, is it a good idea? I'm not sure, like, and just to have a soundboard, it's like a soundboard and it's creepy and it's scary and I'm totally understand but it's a starting point because you're not always going to be able to like phone a friend. And sometimes and I think it's beautiful for that because there's certain things I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that, and
Yeah.
it just it's and part of it though, like let me tell you, so the part that scares me, I guess, is knowing when to put a pause on it, when to, because I like at one point I was like I remember I was like using it like a lot in one day and I was like, I know, I don't need ChatGPT for this. Like, you know what I'm saying? But because I was busy, I really just don't have time to like think. And I think just as long, at least that's what I'm telling myself, like to create days where I strategize on paper or I strategize and I go through like a thinking process so that I'm still, what's the word? Oh my God, what's the word? Like tuning that part of my brain because I do
Hmm.
see a danger, and as an adult, like I think it's like I know when to stop myself. But I'm thinking like as a young person, if you just don't even think about, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Do you know I still journal handwritten? Do you know why I do it? Because I first my handwriting is getting horrible. And yes, sure, maybe we won't ever need it. But the fact that my hand starts to hurt after like one page of journaling, to me, that's scary. I don't ever want to be a person who can't write a sentence without like, does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, it
so,
does.
so these old school habits, like, before technology, I think is still so important because I think as a young person, like, I'm just thinking people who are like grow up with this, you literally don't ever train that part of your brain. You just
That's
like
right.
ask it. So it's like, how much are you losing in terms of your cognitive? But then I read other stuff and people are like, well, no, because then you can use the cognitive piece for other things. But I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit easy to go down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think you're gonna find winning arguments on both sides,
Oh yeah, for
right?
sure. Yeah,
And I
for
think
sure.
that you do raise a good point though that we should be careful about relying on it too heavily
Hmm.
and not. actually thinking for ourselves, right? Like there are certain posts of mine, like, hey, I may have ideas for something, but there are other ones I'm like, you know what? Like I'm a good writer. So like
Right.
let me
I can
just,
do this.
yeah, like let me
Like
just go ahead and knock
like
this out.
ChatGPT ain't got nothing on me, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. And you know, and
Yeah.
no one knows your voice better than you. You know, your
Mhm.
intonations, your quirks, right? Your
Yep.
different inside jokes. Like, come on, you know, you gotta. So I've had that conversation with myself before too. Like, hey, you know, I can do this. I don't need it to be all whatever. And if it's not perfect, I'm cool with that. I'm
Yeah.
cool with that. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going viral anytime soon. I'm not doing any of that, but I am one thing that I am doing is I'm being very consistent, right? Very consistent. And that's helped for sure.
Yeah, consistency is the game and everything. I'm a huge fan of
Mhm.
consistency. I posted something the other day, and it was like, and I love that graphic, and it's had like 7 days, like Sunday through Monday through Sunday, whatever.
Mhm.
And it says what people think consistently looks like, and it was like glasses that were full, or like bars that were like up top, like full, and then it
Mhm.
says what it actually is, and it's like some days you're gonna be like full mode, and some days you're just gonna have a little bit, but it doesn't matter as long as you just do it every day, even if it's for that little bit that day. And I loved it. And I'm like, that's what consistency is all about. And
Absolutely.
I think we're just so distracted again that unless you create that routine and that consistency in your life, whether it's with podcasting, with fitness training, anything, right? It's very easy to just like have other things get in the way. Life happens, and then you're like, oh, it's been a year and I'm not fit anymore, or I'm not, my podcast is not growing. And
Right.
yeah, it's an interesting time we're living in.
It is. You know, I was when I first started out, you know, I was, you know, one of those where I was like, oh, you know, like how do I grow this thing? You know, like what am I doing? I was chasing numbers for a little bit. And then I was like, you know what? I mean, I'm not doing this to like I'm not trying to escape anything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not like if this fails, then I'm like I'm out, you know, like I'm
Yeah.
out down on my luck. And so I had to take a step back because I could see, and you know, I've seen recently there've been a few posts that I've just randomly popped up in my feed of people, you know, quitting, like content creators quitting social media because you know this the drag is a bit too much, and I never want to be that, right? I never
Mm-hmm.
want to experience that. But it's one of those things that I understand why people do it because, or I understand how it can happen because you can get very caught up in, all right, I'm doing this, what are my numbers looking like? And it's like this dopamine hit. And so I saw enough videos of that where I wanted to make sure that can't be me. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing this because I want to do it. I'm not chasing money. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd love a sponsorship or two, right? Like I'll take it,
Yeah.
but it's not the end all be all. I'm not trying to become some, you know, social media star or anything like that. Generally getting the stories out. It's been great for my personal and professional brand, and I get to meet a lot of great people. Right? My second, you know what? You are one of the first people who, like, once I started this whole thing, I can't even remember how you found me, but
I think
like we
LinkedIn probably.
yeah, but we've been chatting since since I
Mm-hmm.
started. And you know the other thing that's funny, I'm actually, and he's coming up on season 3. There's a gentleman who was there from the beginning. Like, I don't know how he found me, but I think I teed something up and he was interested, the guy over in Turkey. And he's actually coming on the show this year. So I was like, wow, talk about people who were there from like day one. This guy has been with me watching the show, supporting the content from day
Mm-hmm.
one. So it was just really good to have him be a part of it.
Mm. You know what's interesting is that you're right. If you start chasing the numbers, and somebody asked me that day, like, what one of my Spotify followers or something? I was like, I don't even know.
Oh,
Like,
please.
I'm sure it's there.
Yeah.
But like to your point, like I just want to create content. I want to get better at like interviewing, and that's part of the journey. That's like a professional development for me, and I love that process. Like I mean, the amount of stuff that I've learned, I've never thought I was this person who does like content. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, what you said, like it's a great tool for building relationships with people you actually want to build relationships with, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes it can just be a conversation. You like, with great conversation. I'm not sure if there's more we can build on this, but sometimes there's, like you and I, like we've been connected now for over, I think it's been probably 2 years. I don't remember,
Yeah,
honestly. I mean, we need to go
yeah,
back and look at when that was, but probably like 2 years, and like that, consistent kind of in touch. And I've had guests on my podcast where I got to know them in their natural kind of their own way. And I'm like, you know what, you'd be great for this project, or you'd be great. I've hired people for Horizon, like where I'm working at the moment,
yeah.
like to come on and like do stuff for us, or like, because that's the best way to also see what's out there, and you can kind of pinpoint to different things, and it's in a very genuine way. And I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's like it's such a beautiful platform, yeah, I don't I always like I remember when I started and people were like, well, like, are you gonna make money from something? Like, no, like, I don't know what's like, what world do we live in where everything is about money, and
right.
if you're looking to, like, yeah, it's important to make a living, but like, this brings me so much joy. Like, it's my happy place, truly.
Yeah, and I feel you on that because, and I think I've gotten to know a lot of my guests, and we've stayed in touch. And one of the things that's great, I think, specifically for my show too, is remember I'm at first a random person reaching out to you about a very vulnerable time in your life. I do an intro call with you, and it's very high level, right? You're going to
Mm-hmm.
go through the process soon. Once you're going to, Elaine is going to be on season 4, right? So just giving your listeners a heads up. But very intro, but I don't get too deep into it. But then we go and have the conversation. So like, we're getting to know initially, but then we go and have the conversation, and I get to hear your responses to a very um, potentially emotional time in your life, a pivotal time in your life, an uncertain time in your life. And I don't take that for granted that people have given me that access to ask them those types of questions
Mm-hmm.
and then go through this series, right? And so what's great about that is that that then helps me build real connections with people because we're talking about, and now granted, a lot of them may have put posts out there before, but I get deep into it. And so we build this connection. They were like, oh wow, it was really great to talk to you, right? And it was really great to kind of get that out, right? And look,
Mm-hmm.
I'm no therapist or anything like that, but
Yeah.
I'm like this facilitator of these conversations, and I get to know my guests, and I'm still in touch with a lot of them
Mm-hmm.
because, when you think about networking, what better way to do that than this, right? In my
Mm-hmm.
case, it's just so happens that we have a very intimate discussion, probably the third time I meet you, right? And so we get right to it.
Yeah. You know what I love about your show is like you have found a very nice theme that has so many different components to it, right? About people, like why they left their jobs and stuff. Um, And you know what? That's what I struggle with the most is and what I've learned about myself over this last 3+ years is that I just enjoy having a good conversation. And you know what I've came to conclude, and I'm doing things differently this year, is I'm gonna spend less time on, like, I don't know if you get the same, but I get a lot of PR people pitching people to me. Do you get that?
Sometimes on
Okay.
occasion, it
Because I've
depends. Like on the matchmaker thing that you sent me,
yeah.
I get a lot of that. If it's too salesy for
Yeah.
me, it's not a good fit.
Yeah, I decline most of them, but sometimes I've made mistakes of, like, having conversation was great, but I'm like, but then I have conversations like I have with you, and I'm like, but this is so much better. Like, just to have that, you know what I mean? So I haven't really cracked, so to say, a particular theme. I just care about a good conversation. And I know it's, and that's what I've learned, because it was focused a lot around like talent, right? Like leadership and talent and careers. But then, like, sometimes I just have a conversation and I'm like, I don't really want to have a team, and that's what I like. And,
Yeah.
and so I've been like, that's what I've been thinking a lot about this year in particular. And I also want to start, I mentioned to you, I want to start doing in person. I have all the equipment and everything ready to go. I just
Hmm.
need to actually do it. But yeah, it's been interesting. So I don't know where I'm going with this from now, like with the podcast at this point. I just know I care about performance and talent and well-being and growth, like these four things, And as long as
Yeah.
I can have a conversation around that, that's where it's at. But I again, like, I kudos to you for actually creating a very nice theme that is very important. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah.
hard to do so because I struggle with that so much, and I'm like my theme is like four different things in one, I guess. But
Yeah, and I often and I appreciate you mentioning that because I did want to like there's a reason that I try to put this content out there and I want people hopefully after each episode you kind of understand that you're not alone in whatever journey you're going through, but that we give you some actionable tips on what you should be doing next. And truthfully, how
yeah.
I'm going to start evolving my content too is like I have all this treasure trove of information. And where I'm at now is do I start a newsletter? What types of other content do I do to get out there? And so that's what I'm working on because I have to be mindful that not everybody's going to listen, not everybody's going to watch. There are some people who are going to read, but am I giving people enough to read? I would say I'm not. Right? I do an article maybe like once a quarter or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. Like I write my articles, and so
Yeah. It's a lot
it's
of
a lot
work.
of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I do try to stay focused on that, and it's been helpful. And as the show evolves, what I'm going to do, and I see some similarities in some of the things we talk about is that I want to open it up. It's going to be more than you'll see some of that in this season too, but be more than just great resignation talk. Because truthfully, that
Mhm.
it's over, right? It's
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff I recorded, I ended up recording the last one earlier this year, but some of the, it's pretty much over. But I want to open it up to folks because, let's say you have that small business owner who I'm sorry, this small business owner who was working at a job decided that they wanted to take this leap to start this new thing, and now look where it's gone. I want to hear about people's most pivotal exit, that most pivotal move, and that I think could be really exciting, right? To
Mm-hmm.
talk about, to talk with, the whole host of people who have kind of left a
Yeah.
job to start something new.
Yeah. No, I think that's spot on. Yeah. I look forward to listening to that.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. It's gonna be awesome. Um, Listen, I could talk to you for hours, but we both have places to be.
yes.
One question I ask all of my guests now, and I don't remember if when you were on my show, if I asked you this, because I might have started incorporating it later on. But the question I start asking all my guests is, what is one question you wish people would ask themselves more often?
Why am I doing this?
I love
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I people should ask themselves. Like, why am I doing this? Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, it can be anything. Why,
Hmm.
whatever it is that you're doing. Why am I doing this?
Hmm.
I love it. Brian, it's always a pleasure. I can't wait to part three and four. And etc. We should do this like every year or 2 years.
All for it.
And 40 for 40, here you go.
Yes,
Right? Maybe I
yes.
will, well, maybe I will join you one of those runs.
Hey,
Um,
without a doubt, cherry blossom coming up.
I will, yeah, I mean, likely I'll be on the sideline, so I don't know if I'm going to be joining you in running, but I will join you. So just to clarify, I'm not committing to running.
Okay,
I don't think my knees can do it. Like I was telling you, like I don't know, like I'm more of a hit Spartan. Like let's just get in, get out, you know. So, but yeah, I will definitely make time over the next year to celebrate with you as well. So thank you
I
again for being here.
I appreciate it. And thank you for having me on. Have a great week.